Alrighty, guys, welcome to the Ara Constellation. Now, this may be similar to the word aura, however, they have a very different meaning, right? So, what I'm going to be using to guide you guys through this breakdown of the Aura Constellation, the stars inside, as well as the astrological influence, is this little webpage I made on solarsystems.org. I'll link it in the description, but you can see the URL right here. And without further ado, let's get started. So the Ara constellation, or as you can see here, the altar, I believe it is either Greek or ancient Latin for altar, is all about the energy of divination and sacrifice. And when we talk about sacrifice, it is specifically sacrificing to the lupus or the wolf and the centaur's constellation, right? So when we talk about this, it is a very interesting and powerful and somewhat fickle of an energy, and it deals with a lot of, sacrifice, judgment, and divine devotion that creates a sense of mysticism around people with these signs, right? And conveniently during this day and age, the aura constellation is between Sagittarius and Capricorn, specifically 19 degrees of Sagittarius all the way through 1 degree of Capricorn. And it moves 1 degree further into Capricorn every 72 years due to the nature of all fixed stars. Now, with that being said, the story of the Ara constellation is it was created by the Cyclops after the war on the Titans on Mount Olympus, right? And then it was used for sacrifices amongst the stars. So when we talk about that and we talk about the energy, it actually has a lot of different energies, right? So on the positive end, we'll scroll through. Where is it? Here we go. On the positive end, when it's rising, or it's rising in the sky at night, as we're moving towards that time of the year where it's actually going up, we have an energy of, deep devotion, spiritual truth. People who are afflicted with it, I shouldn't say afflicted, but people who are having it in their charts have a lot of talents when it comes to the sacred sciences, such as like alchemy, divination, a lot of spiritual practices like priesthood and things like that. And essentially, not that there's a lot of prophets nowadays, however, but people that are experiencing that energy of prophetism and prophetess and all that, positivity, right? So when it comes to the negative end, or it's descending, and we have some, I guess you could say, as it says here, malefic aspects, it often creates this energy of give and take, right? So just like when we talk about the houses, you can have this energy in any sense whatsoever. So whether that be positive or negative, or you experience it, or you're the one doing it to others, it goes both ways, right? But you have that mark on you, and you have that energy of what you want to experience. So as you can see here, there's sacrilege, heresy, talking crazy about some religions that get people pissed off at you, and a lot of burdens from past life karma. And when it comes to the negative side of you not really doing anything, but you're just unlucky, is you experience spiritual burdens through karma. If you haven't already guessed about what you're going to experience with this energy in your chart, a lot of people who have this, especially with like direct conjunction, which we will cover in about a second, is, people are interested in ancient wisdom. If they're on a little bit of the negative side, they're probably going to Chichen Itza and, day visualizing or having a daydream about some sacrifices that are just like, hey, come on, man, why you got to be like that? Well, if you're wondering why, this is why. People have that bit of devious nature in their chart where they were born with a certain alignment, and hopefully it's rising and not falling, because as you can see, the falling aspect of this energy is a bit malefic, right? So with people naturally gearing towards this energy of focus and spiritual, mumbo jumbo, for lack of a better term, they are very interested in things of the mystic arts. They're interested in religious. I wouldn't necessarily say if they are having this rising in their chart that they would gravitate towards priesthood, but maybe they would gravitate towards, Jewish mysticism or Orthodox Christianity, and specifically the, energetic manipulation side, right? So when it comes to that, they're not always going to go towards it in the traditional way, as I mentioned. They're going to be in a space of where they are thinking, they're criticizing, they're being like, okay, I like how it works this way, but it's not always like that, you know? And it really depends on the specific planet. So it's like Sun's pretty obvious. They're just naturally seeking and they're focused on the deeper aspects of spirituality. When it comes to, the moon, they're in a space of sensitivity and they really feel a lot of the energies of the specific group that they identify with. Now, when it comes to talking about the specific group of what they identify, the how it works is the energy of the constellation stays the same, but as it shifts through these spaces in the sky or the houses in the sky, it shifts, right? So when this constellation was probably categorized, and I guess you could say the energy was first interpreted this way, it was probably back in the BC times where the constellation was living between the houses of Libra and Scorpio, right? So it was all about relating depth to people. It was all about relating, the intricacies of what spirituality means to people, right? And it was all about relating, like, that deep, dark, occult adjacent things, especially if it was, rising or falling in your chart, right? But now that it's shifted forward all the way to, how do you say, now times, where it is between Sagittarius and it's moving into Capricorn, it's all about that status, right? So when we think about status in this case from a religious perspective, it is focusing on essentially the specific aspects of, like, this is a religion. Like, for example, we'll use Christianity. Like, they are identifying with the construct of Orthodox Eastern or Russian Christianity, right? So it's essentially like they're living within that, like, field or that thought space and that idea. However, they are, ebbing and flowing and developing their own philosophy within that construct, if that makes any sense. So when we get back to the moon, where it says, emotional depth rooted in tradition, that is essentially what I'm talking about right here when it comes to this shifting into that Capricornian space, right? Because it's still doing what it does, where it's like, dibbling and dabbling in the positives and negatives of spirituality. However, it isn't in that, era of creating relationships around death rather than, isolating different philosophies within a construct of philosophy. So that's pretty much how it goes. So it's like they almost need a pre-existing concept of spirituality to latch onto, and then they are the ones that want to evolve it, right? So as we go down, it kind of applies the same with the same energy. It just has a different expression through the planets. So we'll go to something interesting like Saturn with it. So Saturn's a little bit more fun, right? Because this is where it comes back to that karmic aspect of it. Of, hey, like, bro, this is it's like you chose this religion, you must have done some bad stuff with it in a past life, and now you're in a space where, hey, this is what we have going on, this is what we want to make happen, and this isn't exactly like what I want to do in this life, but I didn't learn my lesson from last life, so now I got to go through this whole thing again of where it was like I was a heretic in my past life, and now I have to go through the convent, or I have to go through priesthood, and I have to become like a brother within the religion, while I always feel this slight disdain for people that don't exactly know why, right? So that's kind of what it's like from a negative aspect. From a positive aspect, you may have, like, been a woman that wanted to be a priest, and in that past life you couldn't, and since you carry that burden with you into the next life, you incarnated as a man to actually experience what it's like without the necessary benefits or enjoyment of what is it, like, the weight that a certain religion may have carried in past lives, right? So with that being said, you would probably move with a lot of, like it says here, spiritual maturity, and just sort of be seen like as an old soul that has done this many times before, right? So that's pretty much the vibes on that aspect, right? And like we were talking about before, the dual nature of the actual altar is whether it is rising or falling in your chart. If it's falling, you're gonna be doing some dirt. If it's rising, you will have a lot of precocious natures, which means you're just going to be very wise for a young age, and you're going to be like an old soul for your ability to expand and actually open yourself up into a space of like, wow, this is like something I've always done for lifetimes, you know? And when it comes to all this stuff that we also see here, you can see this on your own if you want to check it out. But one of the things that I want to focus on before I start actually diving into the specific stars and how they influence you from a specific standpoint is this little piece right here, which is essentially about you making the best of whatever side of the aura constellation you have in your chart, right? So as you can see here, it says the Ara Constellation invites astrologers and seekers to remember the altar in their lives, which is, you know, your place of devotion, your surrender, essentially your morals, right? So when I talk about the Ara Constellation being in this energy of it's Sagittarius moving into Capricorn era, you have to understand that this is what like. So you have to understand that a religion is essentially like buying a mentality and a moral system from a used car salesman, right? Like you're buying a pre-existing model rather than creating these like definitive rules and sense of clarity within yourself, right? So in some weird way of choosing the positive and negative during the upcoming um not exactly millennia, but several centuries of experiencing this constellation, you are going to be like I would say having it on easy mode, right? Because you are focusing on it in a predefined way. You're not like necessarily creating like your own entire moral system. You're in a space of where you can actually kind of like poke and prod at what already exists, right? It's like when a teenager is arguing with their parent about what they did wrong or right, like within parenting them, which as you grow older, you realize is kind of messed up because it's like, hey, man, the one of the wildest realizations that you can have as a young adult is realizing that your parents were growing up right before your eyes too, you know? So it's kind of like that almost like mature, but I'm trying to be mature energy of making something positive out of this. And I say all this to say that through this lack of hardship, as long as you recognize and accept that during these transit within your own life or your own incarnation at this point in time, is an opportunity for you to really open up and expand just your knowledge base, period, of like what's going on, right? And it really comes from you understanding the sacrifices that were made, you having discipline, and you utilizing divine guidance to actually work with these energies, right? So it's more or less about you creating your own rules and your own sense of discipline within the space of making it happen. And it's like as easy as I, you know, kind of said it is to do this when you recognize that. Coming to that perspective is not the easiest part. It's you have to literally go through hardships to show you that what you're doing is difficult and what you're doing is wrong and what you're doing is just spiritually immature, and that you have to take control of it over yourself, right? Because what a lot of people do when they get into these things is they want some sense of spirituality to be your end all be all, you know? And the fact of the matter is that's just like it's a tool for you to use to do what you want, right? Everybody spends so much time in life not necessarily doing what they want. They just do what they feel and what they think is right, and they end up never really living at all, right? And there's a lot of different philosophies on that. Like some people say every decision you ever made was, you know, predestined and you're only living this life to understand why you made the decision. And some people are like, oh, you know, free will, da 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 da, right? Like it's a endless debate that is at the most entertaining, at least what I've come to in that realization, because I don't like if it doesn't affect your life here and now, like you always exist in the, or for the most part, you exist in the ever present now, right? So projecting all that stuff out into the future, at least to me, is a bit pointless because I just want to have fun and do shit I like straight up, you know? And, you know, some people disagree. Some people think that's immature. Some people think it's, you know, mature. But I don't know. Nowadays, I see a lot of people talking about just like pointless philosophy and telling themselves it's not entertainment when it really is, and it's stroking their own ego, making themselves think they have knowledge, and you know will inevitably realize that they lack wisdom. But with that being said, let's get into the stars within this constellation, because angling specific stars, and once again, I will tell you the degrees. I believe I have them written down here. And I'll tell you the degrees and the specific aspects of influence. I will probably keep it a little light just because there's not like too much outrageous difference when it comes to the uh, specific star that you angle. Like some do, some don't. Like as you can see, like some of these Chinese definitions will carry some meaning to it just based off the philosophies that people attributed to the energy of that star. However, one second, I need another diagram. Um, where is it? Okay, I found it. So for those that have been following me for a while, you know that I utilize the solar map right here, which is a mapping of your chart within the body, and it kind of I use it from a very somatic perspective, or if you're familiar with the concept of the body keeps the score, I use this and I combine your chart with your body map to answer the question of, okay, if it keeps the score in this area of life, well, where does it do it, you know? So I have plenty of videos on this. If you just literally look up the solar map on my channel, you'll find it. But with that being said, I also use it to extract specific meanings and descriptions of influences for aspects of the constellations, right? So you can't exactly apply that to an altar like this, but a lot of the constellations are humanoid or animals in some way, so I use that as an advantage to better interpret the actual stars, right? Because the star's influence of a constellation is generalized, but when you get specific, it applies to how you are manifested physically here, which gives you a lot deeper insight and a lot more kind of guidelines and rails to interpret that on. Okay, so essentially, I don't have all the specific degrees of the stars listed at this time, but what I can tell you is that all of these stars are between 19 degrees and 32 minutes of Sagittarius, and they go all the way up to a degree, almost 2 degrees of Capricorn, 1 degree and 50 minutes. So, as we can see here, we have Choo, we have Karno Mizbich, we have Zadok, we have Xin Yin, we have Tso Kang, we have Korban, and we have I forget the Greek letter, and then we have Tao Shou and Cervantes, right? So the degrees that we are going to be working with today specifically, because some of these stars are really close and essentially just have the same meaning, is we're going to work with whatchamacallit? We're going to work with this one, which is the first one, N Ara. I really should know the Greek numeral of what that is. Anybody in the comments, feel free to correct me. I'll probably look it up later and put it in the comments myself. But N Ara is the one that is actually at 19 degrees and 32 minutes of Sagittarius, and it is on the left side of the altar, right? So when we're thinking about the top of the left side of the altar, we deal with spiritual left, right? Which is, if you ever heard the term, this came out of left field, then, that is spiritual left, right? You're like, whoa, where did this came from? That came out of left field. I don't even know what's going on right now. And essentially, what that is from the positive side is you had a lot of divine luck. You have a lot of divine intervention. You have a lot of, you almost move with the proper rituals, the proper energies, the proper space of optimism and creation, right? So when we talk about that, we essentially look at it as straight up like you're lucky. Like that's basically what it means, where it's like you're lucky with opportunity, you're lucky with the choices you make, you're lucky with the rituals you create, right? So whatever you naturally do on a routine basis, pay attention to that. Pay attention to the vibration that you're in, pay attention to the vibration that you're experiencing, because that is showing you how you're lucky. And if you ever get lost in a vibrational standpoint, and I know you know what that means, you have an opportunity to move back to your space with that ritual, and it will always keep you there, right? Because when it comes to obviously you being in the on the cusp of the middle and final decan of Sagittarius, you have an opportunity to grow, you have an opportunity to move, you have an opportunity to really show people a positive philosophy, and it's almost like your life purpose is to grow and expand and really show people that, like, you know, how to just like live in such a vibration and such a mentality where you can just be who you want to be and make it happen because the universe will take care of you. Now, the next star is going to be Y Aura. One second. Where is that? Oh, so it's called Zadok. Um, so Zadok is named after the biblical high priest and is a symbol of righteousness. And essentially, when it's on the altar, it's kind of in the middle. It's debatable. It could be middle or like bottom right. I sort of see it as bottom right, which kind of deals with the opposite spiritual nature of righteousness. And when we talk about righteousness in that way, it's not necessarily um, an emotional or feminine feeling like when we talked about the other star that was up here. It's more of an innate sense of action, right? So it's like you're the righteous one. You're the one that's acting. You're the one that is expressing this energy of this is how you should be, this is how you should act, and this is how you should manifest your reality, right? So people with this star, they are a very mm, I don't necessarily want to say powerful, but I want to say rigorous, right? Because everybody has that natural sense of power, and essentially, it's you incarnating with the same time, energy, attention, and focus, right? But having that ability to focus is how you concentrate your power and you gain precision. So these people are, they have an energy about them. They aren't exactly yet on the cusp of Capricorn. However, they are in a space where they can manifest and multiply their energies through that more masculine side of the Sagittarius energy, where it is living the life of that philosophy. They're demonstrating their religion. So it's just like that person at a young age. Like, for example, if you grew up in the synagogue or you go to like BYU or something, you are someone who is exemplified and quote unquote exalted by God because you live in a pre existing set of conditions that allow you to focus and have a deep concentration with your energy itself. So that's kind of what it's like, except they're actually living it. They're actually doing it. They're actually making it happen and putting themselves in a position to where they are that powerful and they are that energetic and they really can make you believe that you can improve your life and do things on the righteous end yourself. So it's with it carrying that energy of just a high biblical priest, like that's what it is. Like you're naturally born to be someone that is righteous in that way and can be a leader to people just by your own actions. Now the next star that we're going to be talking about is Choo. So Choo is the bottom left leg of the altar right here. And as you can see, Choo is, it's basically meaning of pedestal, um, where it is a support mechanism, right? So when it comes to support, these people kind of experience the same thing as these people, if that makes any sense. And it is in 25 degrees of Sagittarius, so it is moving towards that Capricorn in space, right? And essentially what is going on with Choo is it is a support mechanism. Like it's sort of like I don't know if you've ever had like someone call you like your totem or like your lucky person, but essentially that is what Choo does for people, right? To where it's like they're always in support of others or they're in support of an action, and they are it's like the best way I can really explain it is I should probably like edit it and put it in, but it's like how do you explain it? It's like that aura farming kid like on the boat that is literally just like dancing, and he really has no benefit to the people that are racing outside of him just like sitting there and just vibing really hard up front, right? So it's like by no law of physics does this person actually help or support what's going on, but off the strength of the vibes, they are everything, right? And it really comes down to the like degrees, right? 25 degrees. 25 degrees is the number 7. 2 and 5 is, relationship and vibes. So, and then we put 7 together, it's all about intelligence and relationships. So, when we talk about this energy and we talk about supporting, they are just there to have good vibes, to support, and basically bring that aura and that energy from the Ara constellation to whatever they actually work with. Now, the next star, which is the back of the altar, which is Cervantes. Cervantes, it doesn't seem to have the degree written down. It's not an exact degree. But it is, what is it? It's probably around like 24 to 26 degrees of Sagittarius as well. But Cervantes is named after the renowned Spanish writer, Miguel de Cervantes. And essentially what it is it is someone who is observant of those philosophies. They do sit back. They do observe. And in the actual image of the Ara constellation, which, doesn't look like this, it's just some AI generated image that I thought looked cool. But it's basically like, if you imagine a pedestal that has like 3 prongs and there's like a ring around it that kind of supports it and the altar's up top. Cervantes is the back part, and it's like right here. And essentially what it is it's an observer. It's a unifier. It sits back and it interprets the philosophies from a spiritual perspective, and it unifies them from a like, really there's no other way to put it other than like there's 3 sides to every story. Party A, party B, and then what actually happened, And what the Cervantes star does is it provides that third party verification of where it's like impartial, but it tells you what happened, So it doesn't exactly do too much other than that, but it is a unique kind of like laid back, wallflower type of star that just observes and records. Now, the final star that we are going to discuss, which is, I think that is, it's Tao Shou. Tao Shou is, what is that? Is that like Omega or it's not Epsilon? Damn, I really gotta know my Roman numerals better. But anyways, it says the way of immortality here. I don't fully agree with that necessarily. Just based off like the surface level of what it means. Like, I know I wrote it, but when it comes to the way of immortality, what I really meant by that, not in like a surface level way, is it shows you the nature of spirit, right? So this star, damn, I really didn't even write the degrees down. Should have. But this star is a powerful energy. It doesn't show you the way of immortality like a vampire, or as ancient biblical say, the Igori, which is a fallen angel that told people like, hey man, like they said, body and blood of Christ, everlasting peace. Just drink people's blood and you'll live forever. It's not like that. It's understanding that from a spirit's perspective, you shed vessels all the time, and you are essentially like infinite spiritual being that always lives in the ever-present now, whether you have a vessel or not. And once again, this is over here, the right side. And it essentially just shows you the righteous side of what it means to support spirituality, which is to live every day, whether it's in heaven or hell. From a spiritual perspective, you'll view it as like just consciously experiencing what you want versus, not doing that, right? So it's more or less just like, hey, man, some days I'm existing, some days I'm living, and they're kind of born with that innate philosophy of making things just like be themselves, just do their thing. Don't really think too much, don't worry too much, don't fear too much. All moments shall pass. We'll see, It's just that innate type of vibe of like, is this good? Is this bad? We'll see, And it's not necessarily like that kind of annoying way of where it's just like you don't
you just straight Buddha it and you remove all desires and you remove all natures of life. But it's like you just have that innate understanding of like maybe in the next life. Oh, this is great right now. You're just experiencing the moment, living your thing. You know.
But essentially, that is the energy of the Aura constellation, all the stars. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you want your own customized fixed star reading where you want me to do it for you and do a much more detailed report on that, hit me up, link in the description, or just click here on my site, find your star, get that reading, and I got you.